welcome to Stories by the Campfire, brought to you by Tsanev Bushcraft. I'm Yoko Tsanev, survivalist, adventurer, and founder of Tsanev Bushcraft. In this podcast, I share personal stories from my survival experiences, real life moments that told valuable lessons about resilience, nature, and the human spirit. Occasionally, I'll recount stories from others, always giving credit where it's due. Some of these accounts have been dramatized for a more immersive listening experience. At Tsanev Bushcraft, we're all about helping you develop the mindset, skills, and confidence to thrive in nature. We offer online and in person survival and bushcraft courses, expeditions, and personalized consultations. My new book, How to Survive and Have an Epic Adventure, is out now. Grab your copy and take your skills to the next level. Available on Amazon Kindle and print on demand, as well as a PDF download directly from our website, sanevbushcraft.com/book. That's sanevbushcraft.com/book. Check it out, it's amazing. Join our community at adventures.sanevbushcraft.com and connect with fellow explorers to learn more, get access to exclusive content, and share your expertise. So, gather around the campfire, it's time for a story. In this episode, I share a personal survival campfire story, and it's about having to build a survival shelter at -6 degrees Celsius and below, the freezing cold, and no second chances. After you finish listening, I want you to reflect on the priorities in a survival or emergency situation, or in any extreme challenge in life. Is success about what you want to do, or is it about what you must do? No matter the cost, no matter the discomfort, the right choice is often the hardest one. The wind cuts through me like a blade, sharp, unforgiving. It doesn't stop, it doesn't care. -6 degrees Celsius and dropping. I find myself sent out into the wild with nothing but the clothes on my back, a single layer, and my basic survival equipment: a knife, my ferro rod, some cordage, a single wall steel water bottle, already empty, and a basic first aid kit. No tent, no sleeping bag, no second chances. It is the day of the final test of my advanced winter survival course, one that will determine whether I have what it takes for the dangerous expeditions I was planning to go on. The instructors had stripped me down to the bare minimum. They want to see if I can build a proper shelter, get a fire going, and make it through the night. I need a fire. I collect so much wood it will last me the rest of the day, the whole night, and then some. I prepare my precious tinder, shavings and feather sticks, the kindling. Now I'm batoning the wet wood that I need for the initial firewood, peeling its damp bark, splitting it fourths, in sixths, sometimes in eighths, just with my knife. My knife that has seen better days, especially after what it has been through in the last few. I do everything the way I was taught, meticulously, carefully, with extra materials. Despite the biting wind, despite the pain in my fingers, despite the freezing cold. But the cold, damp air and wet wood betray me. No matter how many times I strike my ferro rod, the sparks fizzle into nothing. And then it hits me. I'm running out of time. The instructors had been clear: shelter, fire, both, before nightfall. I grab at frozen branches, yanking them free from the undergrowth, stacking them in my arms. Faster. The sun is bleeding out, sleeping below the trees. I have minutes, not hours. Minutes before darkness swallows the forest whole. And I'm not ready. I don't have fire, and most certainly I don't have shelter. Fail, and I won't just flunk this exam. I'll fail the entire course, and that's not an option. This isn't just some basic survival workshop. This is an advanced winter survival certification, a proving ground. The kind of course elite survivalists take before heading into dangerous, unforgiving terrain, the Arctic, the Amazon, the Siberian wilderness. It's built to weed out the weak, to expose every gap in your skills, every flaw in your mindset. You don't just need textbook survival knowledge, you need to apply it under extreme stress. And I signed up for this because I need to prove to myself and to them that I'm ready for the real thing, for the expeditions I've been planning, for the life I've chosen. This isn't a weekend camping trip. It's a career defining test, a gateway to the kind of adventures most people only dream about. If I fail, I don't just walk away with a bruised ego. I walk away knowing that I wasn't ready. And that's a failure I can't accept. I tighten my grip on the frozen branches. Keep moving. Because if I don't pass this, my brain cannot comprehend it. So I refuse to think about what and why. Just move your body forward. But my body is shutting down. For a second, I am somewhere else. That's when I hear his voice, a memory. His voice echoes in my head. 10 of you came in, yet only 2 remain, he says with a firm, disapproving voice. The instructor's boots crunch against the frozen ground as he looks between us. 6 days, 6 relentless days. We had been put through hell, military style survival drills, exhaustion, no sleep, brutal cold, constant movement. Every night, all 10 of us huddled under a single tarp, feeding the fire, bodies pressed tight together, taking turns to keep it alive. If the fire died, we died with it. But it wasn't just the cold or exhaustion that broke people. The instructors were watching, always watching, watching for mistakes. Because if you made a mistake, you didn't just put yourself at risk, you put the whole team in danger. And if that happened, you were gone. They didn't wait for you to quit. This course wasn't just testing who could endure the pain, it was testing who could stay sharp through it. Because out there, in the real world, in the mountains, in the jungle, on an expedition, it's a place where no one is coming to save you. A single mistake can mean the difference between life and death, and the eliminations started fast. By day 2, we were stripped of our sleeping bags. That night, we lay on cowboy beds, nothing but thin branches stuck between 2 logs covered with a flimsy bivy sack. And it snowed. Not a gentle snowfall, a relentless, biting blizzard, whipping through the trees, burying our makeshift beds under thick layers of white. One moment the wind would howl, tearing through our tarp like a blade. The next it would dump freezing rain, soaking our clothes, turning our breath to mist. The switch between wet and frozen was brutal. The cold sunk in deep, pressing into our bones. The instructors didn't let up. No fire, no heat. No heat, no sleep. We didn't sleep. Oh, really? Just shivered in the darkness, waiting for dawn. And when morning came, calories were cut. deliberate, calculated. They started us with enough food to function. Then, day by day, they took it away. By the fourth day, we were running on half rations. By the fifth, we had to earn our meals, and we earned them through pain, navigation drills, fire starting drills, timed challenges in the freezing snow, hands trembling, hunger gnawing at our stomachs, writing down notes with numb fingers, forcing our brains to stay sharp despite the exhaustion. They wanted to see if we could still think, still make rational, life saving decisions when we were beyond broken. They weren't testing strength, they were testing control. And one by one, they started tapping out. By day three, people started dropping one by one. Some from hypothermia, some from exhaustion, some because their minds broke before their bodies did. And now it was just the two of us. The last two standing. The man standing next to me, he wasn't just some weekend warrior looking for a challenge. He was a soldier, not just any soldier, an ex Special Forces survivalist, middle aged, built like a boulder, skin like leather, with the kind of eyes that had seen things most men wouldn't survive. Now he was a mountain guide and also working in private security, looking for this certification to earn a promotion in his company. A formality for him. He had survived worse, much worse. Months on end in the jungles of Borneo, he told me once, in a rare moment of conversation, about the time his company slept in hammocks amidst the dense foliage. One night, his comrade's scream pierced the jungle's silence. A massive reticulated python had latched onto his friend's hand, its jaws stretching, engulfing it almost up to the elbow. In sheer terror and pain, his friend drew his machete and, in a desperate bid for survival, severed the snake's head along with his own arm. He had slept in the worst conditions imaginable, endured hunger, filth, disease, everything the wild could throw at him. This course, it was nothing to him. And yet, I was still here too. Me. I wasn't ex-military. I didn't have his background. I hadn't spent months in the jungle, hadn't faced war, hadn't seen what he's seen. So, how had I lasted this long? One thing: willpower. I wanted this more than anything, because if I didn't pass this, I might as well never go on an expedition again. The final test. Survived the first day, then a full night, and then the next morning, alone, a total of 30 hours minimum. No teammates, no shared tarp, no sleeping bags, no second chances. Just me, my shelter that I would build, and the cold. A gust of wind rips me back to reality. I grit my teeth, keep going, no time. Exhausted, I drop to my knees, scanning the forest floor. I need a ridgepole, something sturdy enough to form the backbone of my A-frame shelter. It has to be thick, strong enough to support the ribs, but light enough to move without wasting too much energy. There, a fallen branch, thick and strong. Perfect. I drag it to a small clearing and wedge it between the V of an old tree. Now the ribs, smaller branches angled against the frame. Then pine boughs, intertwining them between the ribs and layering them thick on top for insulation, each needle a barrier against the cold creeping in. I layer the pine boughs thick, packing them tight against the frame, sealing every gap. But the frost is setting in, crawling under my skin, and I still need fire. My head spins. I feel lightheaded again. I know I must be severely dehydrated by now, since I need fire first in order to boil the dirty water from the frozen muddy puddles nearby. But I don't have a fire. My head spins and I lose briefly grip with reality. 3 days into the course, it was the first time ever I tried to start a fire just with a ferrocerium rod and natural materials. Fine shavings from a piece of wood, ethically sourced from the soaking wet and cold great outdoors. I struck my ferro rod again and again. Nothing. The damp air devoured the sparks before they could catch. I didn't understand. Why wasn't it working? And then the instructor crouched next to me, shaking his head. You don't have dry tinder. You can scrape all the sparks you want, but without proper preparation, you'll never get fire. I never forgot that lesson. That lesson, that memory suddenly brought me back. And now, as I'm building my shelter, I know I need it to be dry. I need it to block the wind. I need to trap my own body heat inside. Because right now, fire isn't coming. And without shelter, I won't make it. My hands are shaking. The shelter is almost done, but the sky is bleeding out its last light. I work faster, faster. I hear footsteps crunching somewhere in the distance. The instructors. I press the final branches into place, shove more insulation over the top, reinforcing it until I'm sure. Sure it's strong enough, sure it will hold, sure it will keep me alive. The wind slumps into the shelter, but crouching inside for the first time, I feel something. The cold is still there, but it's different. Trapped outside. I did it. I built my shelter. Now I need fire. I take a deep breath. This is it. This is the last thing standing between me and survival. This time I do it right. I need something better than the damp rotten wood I've been trying to make my tinder from. I scan the ground, my eyes darting over the fallen pine branches until I spot it. A rotting pine tree trunk, dark and damp from the snow. I kneel beside it, knife in hand, shaving away at the bark at the base of the branch. The outside is wet, rotten and grey, but the inside, I test it with my blade, and there it is, bright orange near red color, a faint scent like turpentine, like fire itself, smell like resin. That branch, that piece of wood is soaked with pine resin, fatwood they call it. This is gold, real gold, not the kind you mine or trade, the kind that saves your life. Dead pine branches, rich with resin, almost dripping with it. Fatwood catches a spark even in any wet weather and in the worst conditions. I prepare finer shavings from the fatwood I collected. More and more and more tiny curls of wood, almost powder-like, piled in the center of my chosen fireplace right in front of my shelter. A piece of dry bark to serve me as a base and to keep the cold damp ground from eating my flames. Feather sticks, at least four I make, carved thin, fanned out like the ribs of a dead animal. But even that's not enough. I split more fat wood into larger splint wood for kindling. I split off slivers, adding them to the pile. Then I rub the fine shavings between my fingers, feeling the sticky resin cling to my skin. This will burn. This will burn fast. Now it's time. Now it's fire or failure. I reach for my ferro rod, grit my teeth, but my hands, they're barely working. I strike a few times, sparks scatter, but this time something different happens. The shavings darken, curl inward, then glow. A thin ribbon of smoke rises from the pile. The smoke thickens. This all happens fast, real fast, but for me, it's all in a slow motion. And then flame, a tiny flicker, barely alive, but it's enough. I feed it carefully, adding the feather sticks, then the fatter splinters of fat wood. The flames grow, licking at the cold air, snapping against the darkness. And then it's real fire. Not just a spark, not just an ember. Fire. I collapse backward, exhaling. Not from exhaustion, not from pain, from victory. The heat washes over me, my frozen fingers throbbing back to life. The adrenaline is still there, pulsing in my veins, but now there is something else. Something deeper, a raw, primal feeling. I won. I beat the cold. And for the first time in hours, I don't feel it anymore. I hear the crunch of boots on snow. A shadow moves just beyond the fire's glow. I look up and examine her. His eyes flick to my fire, then to my shelter. He doesn't speak right away, just stares at me, nodding slightly, like he wasn't sure I could do it. Then he says it. You made it. I nod, still breathing hard, but then his expression hardens. You're not done yet. A pause. My chest tightens. You got it lit, he says. Good. Then his voice drops. Now keep it going. I blink. You passed this round, he continues. But we're coming back in the morning. If the fire is out, he lets the silence do the talking. I know what he means. If the fire dies before sunrise, if I sleep too long, I fail. One more test, one last fight, and the night has only just begun. The fire is burning, but I can't sleep. I can't. The cold won't let me. I feed the fire endlessly, every hour, every minute, keeping the flames alive. Snow falls, covering my shelter, but it holds. The wind screams outside. I drift in and out of sleep, and then I am not really sure at the time. A dream, a nightmare, or is it real? I'm lost in an endless tundra. No shelter, no fire, no knife. My fingers are black with frostbite. I walk aimlessly through the knee-deep snow. I see dark figures through the blizzard. The ones who failed the course before me. Their eyes are empty, their lips frozen shut. Then their lips begin to move. A sound escapes, cracked and brittle like the spitting of ice. A whisper that isn't a whisper, but the wind itself crawling into my ears, slithering into my brain. You are not supposed to be here. The words grind against my skull, slow, deliberate, like something ancient waking from its slumber. The tallest figure steps forward. His skin is gray, split open in places where the cold peeled it back like old bark. Frost clings to his lashes, to the bloodless cracks along his face. His breath comes in wheezing rasps, but the air is too cold. I see no mist, no warmth. Leave, before you also belong to this place. The others begin to move jerky and natural, like their limbs are controlled by strings. One of them tilts his head too far to one side. Crack! The sound is too sharp, too real. My gut twists. I know these men. One of them, his lips frozen into a permanent grimace, was the first to drop out of the course. Did hypothermia took him, or did he fail in a shelter building task and got expelled? I'm desperately trying to remember. Still facing me up close, he suddenly started shivering so hard he bit his own tongue, blood dripping onto the snow before the other figures pulled him in towards the back of the group. Another. His face is locked in a look of agony. A man who could never start his fire and let the cold crawl into his bones. But the last one shouldn't be here because he is me. I stagger backward, but the snow grips my legs like hands, refusing to let me move. The frost-bitten figures shift closer. You think you're different? Their voices layer on top of each other, low, distorted, echoing from inside my own skull. I shake my head, my breath quick, shallow. No, no, I won't. You will. A hand shoots out, rotten fingers, blackened and stiff, grabbing my wrist. The cold is unbearable. A deep, stabbing pain worse than anything I've felt before. It burns and yet I feel nothing. Nothing. I look down. My hands, they're turning black. My skin is cracking. My breath is slowing. My body, it is not mine anymore. You think you won? You think your little fire will save you? Their mouths don't move anymore, but the words press down on me like a weight, filling my chest, crushing my ribs. I feel weightless, like I'm floating, detached from my own body. I look down at my own face, my corpse frozen in the snow, my lips blue, my eyes open, staring into nothing. You will wake up cold. You will wake up tired, and one day you won't wake up at all. The dark figures whisper, voices like wind through dead trees. And then I snap awake. My first instinct, I whip my head toward the fire. My heart pounds. I don't see the flames. I don't see the flames. I lunge out of my shelter, my breath frozen in my throat. Then I see them, tiny, flickering, but alive. The fire is still alive. I survived the night. The fire crackles. I feed it still. The nightmare turns to ash, defeated by the flames. The instructors return. They check my shelter. They check my fire. Then, finally, they nod. You pass. That night, I learned a truth I'd never forget. Survival isn't about what you want to do, it's about what you have to do. Survival is never about comfort. It's about discipline, it's about priorities, and most of all, it's about doing the work before it's too late. The rule of three isn't a theory, it's a law. If you don't have shelter, you die. If you don't have fire, you die. If you don't control your mind, you die. I exhale, staring into the flames. I won this round, but the code isn't gone. It never is. I know we will soon meet again. Because when the code is hunting you and you hesitate, you make a mistake, or you get lazy, you don't get a second chance. Thank you for listening to Stories by the Campfire. I'm Tsanev, and I hope today's tale sparked your sense of adventure and curiosity. Don't forget to join our community at adventures.tsanevbushcraft.com for exclusive content, discounts on online and in-person survival courses, expeditions, and more. Grab my book now, How to Survive and Have an Epic Adventure, and explore practical skills alongside powerful stories. Available to purchase on Amazon and directly on our website. Stay connected, stay prepared, and until next time, keep the fire burning.